Hi, welcome to Out of the Page. I recently finished reading Thomas Pynchon's 1973 masterpiece, Gravity's Rainbow. Just want you to get a scale of how big this book is before we start. Okay. That book belongs to a special genre of books I like to think of as difficult literature. For example, to get through this, it took about 6 months and I used 2 separate reading guides to basically understand a lot of what I was reading and really get the full experience of reading this book. For those who don't know and aren't familiar with Gravity's Rainbow, it is a notoriously complicated and convoluted and complex book. It's the kind of book that a lot of people are going to throw across the room when they get about a third of the way into it because they've just had enough, they don't understand it, and they don't like it. It's the kind of book that honestly doesn't make a whole lot of sense at first and really relies on you to have curiosity and diligence as a reader to map out the giant cast of characters and events and figure out how they all intertwine and spend a lot of time trying to interpret and research what it is that Pynchon is trying to say. So you're probably thinking to yourself, that sounds like a bloody nightmare. Why the hell would anyone want to do that? Fair enough to you. The truth is, I'm making this video in part to try and explain to myself why I love difficult literature. And hopefully I can convince a few people of its merits along the way. So a good place to start would be to define what is difficult literature. It's not actually a genre, so to speak. You're never going to walk into a bookstore and see a whole shelf with difficult literature at the top. Classics, poetry, sci-fi, difficult. Not a thing. However, kind of is a thing at the same time. I think something really important about difficult literature and books that fit in to this category is that they can really come from any genre of book. They can be speculative fiction, they can include romance elements, that could be a mystery. The difficulty comes from the writing and the presentation of the story, not from what the story is actually about. Difficult literature is usually written in a style that is designed to disorient the reader and to challenge them more than anything. None of these books are going to be straightforward. Very few of them are even going to have a standard, chronological narrative arc. For example, another book, Ulysses by James Joyce. Most people probably heard of this. It's pretty much the quintessential example of what difficult literature is all about. Every single chapter is written in a different style. They're almost like different genres of books for each chapter. One of them is a Victorian romance. Another is written in the form of a play. Very famously, the final chapter of the book is a stream of consciousness monologue written in one continuous string without punctuation. Goes for about 60 odd pages. To be fair, a lot of people are going to find this style of writing pretentious and complex for the sake of being complex. I'm going to gladly disagree. See, for me, the whole point of telling a story in this fashion is to make the reader stop and actually consider every aspect of the story that they're being told instead of just taking a lot of it for granted. In difficult literature, what you're going to see is the chapters a lot of times jumbled up. And for example, in Gravity's Rainbow, paragraph to paragraph, you're going to have jumps in time from one point of that wider story arc to the other. Other books might just be chapter to chapter it jumps. Depends on the book. Either way, what it does is force you as the reader to actually pay attention, and a lot more attention, as to who is who, when is when. And it also makes you question the ordering of the chapters as they go. So in a normal story, what we see is cause and effect in that order. But in something non-chronological, because we see it the other way around, it gives you a different perspective on the action and also makes you wonder, why has it been shown in the manner that it has been shown? A good reason for that is that many writers of difficult literature like to experiment with form and techniques and even come up with their own. David Foster Wallace, the writer of Infinite Jest, was famous for having really long sections of footnotes at the back of his books which were as important to the plot as the pages that preceded them. Virginia Woolf, one of my favorites, pioneered her own version of the stream of consciousness, that style of writing I mentioned before. And in her books, what you'll often see is that the lens through which the narration is taking place, so the point of view that you're being presented as a reader, actually changes throughout a scene to cycle through big casts of characters. There's a scene in Mrs. Dalloway where Clarissa walks into a park, and the point of view of the narration just basically cycles through a whole bunch of people who are standing in that park and eventually cycles back to her. A lot of elements that I'm talking about that are inherent to difficult literature all come back to this one core concept, which is that the books are specifically written to challenge conventions. The writers still want you to enjoy their work, of course, but not for the reasons that you would normally enjoy a book. Normally, you would enjoy a book because, for example, the ending is really fulfilling, or maybe you connect really closely with one of the characters. With difficult literature, what the writer wants you to do is derive enjoyment from unpacking the elements of the book, almost like you're on a treasure hunt. You won't understand everything the first time round. That's actually the point. Your curiosity to figure out what the author means, to hunt down the references and allusions that they're making to things, to plot the characters and the causes and effects, means that you're actually an active participant in the book. You're not just a reader, you take part in the action. I think very understandably, difficult literature is not for everyone. A lot of people may have picked up Ulysses or something like The Recognitions by William Gaddis. Maybe you picked up those books because you heard about the reputation and you wanted to see what all the hype was about, and probably ended up hating the experience. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. We all have different reasons for reading books, and most people read for the same reasons that I watch TV, which is to be entertained. With difficult literature, yes, you will be entertained, but you're also going to be challenged and you're going to be pushed to new places. And with each book, hopefully you're going to learn a little bit more about what is possible in a novel. I'll end by saying that yes, there is a fine line between being challenging and being unreadable. And I've got a whole video of that I'm writing at the moment, and that'll come out soon. For anyone who is on the fence though, if you've heard about like a difficult novel or a famously challenging book that you are interested in, or if you don't know where to start, hopefully I can help you, because I don't think it's a really good idea to just jump into one of the big doorstop books like Moby Dick or 2666, one of these novels that is big enough to beat a home intruder to death with. Probably not a great place to start, especially if you're not familiar with that kind of writing. What I would recommend is read a shorter novel, something like Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway or To the Lighthouse that I mentioned earlier. Older books that are a lot shorter but are still difficult, because there's so much history built into them now and so much research, you can pretty easily get reading guides online, and that's something I would absolutely recommend as well. Don't do it alone. Don't go blindly into a book. As I said, I'm a reasonably well-read, intelligent person, I think. I struggled immensely with Gravity's Rainbow the first time around, and I did use 2 reading guides. That's a lot of help to get through a novel, but it makes the experience much, much smoother and more enjoyable. There are more modern examples of difficult literature, of course, but there's going to be a lot less help when you're going into them. If you look at any major, awards list for something like, the Booker Prize, for example, or, Nobel laureates, a lot of them are writers of difficult literature, but if their writing is really modern, there's a lot less help, I guess, less reading guides, a lot less cliff notes to get you through the experience. So I'd say start with something a little bit older, go in with help, and you'll appreciate it a hell of a lot more, because you'll understand what the author is trying to do. And I think part of that just enhances the whole experience. You appreciate the magic a little bit more when you know how it's done. From there, I think if you enjoy a smaller novel, you're going to enjoy a larger novel. And the world will be your oyster, and soon you too will have these 2 behemoths on your shelf, and you too will know how to prop doors open in the summer. Thank you for watching, as always, and if you do love difficult literature, please leave a comment. What is your favorite book in that genre? Because if I haven't read it, maybe I will read it. It's something I'm very interested in. For everyone else, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later.